Hello, everyone. It is now time to kickstart our first session for the Economic Times Next Tech Middle East HR Summit 2022. And this is the opening keynote by Josh Bersin on the topic Creating Irresistible Employee Experiences and HR Priority. The post-COVID workforce challenges have put the spotlight on employee experience. HR and business leaders are recognizing the importance of creating positive experiences at every step of an employee journey, as well as in the moments that matter during each workday. In this opening keynote, Josh will present findings from his company's recent research on employee experience. So join him as he discusses the business impact of EX, along with the practices that can accelerate any company's path to EX excellence. He will also untangle the complex and competitive EX technology market segment. Josh is a global industry analyst and CEO at the Josh Bersin Company. An industry analyst, researcher, educator, and technology analyst, Josh has covered all aspects of corporate HR, training, talent management, recruiting, leadership, and workplace technology. He's also the founder of Bersin and Associates, which is now known as Bersin by Deloitte. A keynote speaker, he advises HR teams and vendors in the HR space and also serves as an educator, thought leader, and personal coach to HR and business leaders around the world. His professional goal is to make work-life better around the world by helping HR professionals and teams learn, stay informed, and develop deep expertise on world-leading practices that help their companies formulate leadership strategies and workplace technology solutions. Josh spends his time studying the world of work, HR, and all aspects of workplace technology. And before I invite Josh to deliver his opening keynote address, I would request our audience today to keep sharing your thoughts and questions in the comments section. Let's keep the section buzzing. And now, without any further delay, let me invite Josh to deliver his opening keynote address. Over to you, Josh.
Hello, everyone. This is Josh Bersin, and I want to thank you for inviting me to speak today on the topic of employee experience, which is a really big, important topic in the HR domain and HR tech and all different aspects of the business community. So let's get started. First of all, this is based on a massive research study we did in 2021 and early 2022, which looked at 80 to 90 different practices that companies adopt for employee programs and correlated many of these practices against financial outcomes, human capital outcomes, and growth. And you'll see that a lot of these are things you kind of know, but may not have thought enough about. And so I'll give you some insights into some of the things we found that are really, really important. First of all, I don't need to spend a lot of time on this, but let me just highlight why this is such a big topic. It's a big topic because employees have become the most critical supply chain issue in most companies. We've been through 14, 15 years of economic growth. We've gone through a pandemic. We still are in a pandemic. We're in the middle of a global, a war in Europe, the highest inflation in 40 years in the United States, and not enough employees in most parts of the world to keep companies growing. So retention and attraction are becoming the most important business issues on the minds of CEOs. And while that's happening, we're transforming our companies, digitizing everything, and industries are collapsing. And you'll see in our global workforce intelligence research that almost every industry is going through a transformation to become something that sort of feels like an adjacent industry. So reskilling, upskilling, and hiring people based on capabilities are really becoming critical. And we don't have enough workers. In the United States, roughly 1 in 10 or more, almost 1 in 9 jobs are open. So it's as if you would walk through a building and look at the desks, and every 10 desks, there's an open slot. That's a very, very difficult experience for companies when the demand for their products and services is growing. And these are not just high-tech workers or managers. These are salespeople, nurses, truck drivers, retail workers, people who work in hotels. All these different jobs have become hard to hire because of the economy growing and because the workforce is under stress. I mean, the workforce has lost 4 million people in September voluntarily left. Also in October and November, it was 4.2 million. In December, it was 4.2 million again. In January, it was 4.2 or 4.3 million. This is just the United States. If you take 4 million people every month and multiply by 12, that's almost 50 million people a year voluntarily leaving their jobs. And in the United States, there's about 160 million people working. So that's a third of the workforce is voluntarily leaving their work. In some healthcare providers, they have a 70% turnover rate in the nursing population. And that's for a whole variety of reasons, some of which are not things that companies can deal with. But if you can create a great experience at work and you can build a really what we call irresistible company and a highly flexible work contract, you will, outperform. And that's really what this is all about. And it's going to affect your ability to grow. It's funny, this is $2.95 a gallon. I'm looking at this. This is a year ago. Now it's $5 a gallon. So, this is not just a topic of, let's reduce our turnover rate because it makes us a better employer. This is kind of like business critical stuff. And of course, the flip side of this is one of the reasons this is happening is the way people work and what they expect out of their careers has changed too. Most of us have multiple sources of income. We've worked at home or in various locations during the pandemic. We may have decided we don't want to do the same job we did before. So we're thinking about going back to school or changing employers or working in a diverse city. Or if we're working remotely, maybe we don't have to go to another city. Virtual work is easier than ever. And employers are now realizing we've got to look for people based on their capabilities, not their direct experience in this job. And so internal development and internal mobility is a critical part of building an irresistible organization too, because if you can't move people around inside the company and develop people, you may not find people that want to take the jobs you post. By the way, the most rarefied job in the market at the moment is recruiter. Recruiters are in more demand than software engineers, according to LinkedIn. Now, why is all this happening? It's a combination of digital disruption of businesses and industries, but also the fact that work has been automated and a lot of the traditional routine work that we all used to do isn't really necessary. So we're all doing more creative work and more, we're selling work, we're managing, we're communicating, we're writing, we're creating things, we're working with customers, we're listening. And this service economy is very dependent on your personal needs. If you feel tired, upset, overworked, unsafe, like your company doesn't care about what you're doing, you can't do your job well because your job is all about who you are as a person, not what your physical skills are. And so mental health, well-being, a sense of belonging, flexibility, these are CEO level issues now. These aren't just benefits programs or employment brand initiatives. These are things that really companies have to do to grow and succeed. And they're spending a lot of money on this. Almost a third of every dollar spent on wages is spent on these non-cash benefits. Non-cash benefits are things like insurance, vacation, well-being, healthcare, leave policies. These are significantly high amounts of money and very important. And wages are going up too. So you're probably sitting there, your CFO is probably saying to himself or herself, we've got to add more money in the flexibility and the benefits part of the employee value proposition, but we also need to raise wages. So this is going to impact profits. And right now, most companies are growing, so profits are reasonably high. But this is the reality of EX is we need to do this well. And the fundamental, paradigm that I like to remind people of is we're not making work better to make people feel better, or we're not making people feel better to make their work better. We're trying to make their work better to make them feel better. When people like their job, when they like the work, when their manager recognizes and appreciates them, when they like their teammates, they actually enjoy the work experience and their productivity and their engagement goes up. So one of the fundamental principles of EX is giving people the time and the freedom to be productive in the job and clearing the decks from the things that are getting in the way. And that's what this research is about. Now, managers play a major role in the EX. It isn't just an HR initiative. In fact, it's much bigger than HR. EX crosses HR, IT, management, facilities, safety, all sorts of different disciplines of how the company operates. But what leaders want is they want employees to feel creative. I mean, the best possible scenario for any manager or leader is that the team feels so engaged and aligned and excited about the work that they're building and creating things that are adding value all the time without being micromanaged or performance managed all the time. And we're doing that in a world of growth and trust and uncertainty. We've had the political unrest around the world. We now have the issues with Russia and Ukraine. We've had the pandemic and all the challenges of social issues of the public health system and whether we trust the public health system. It turns out that the part of society that survived all that is the business part of society. Businesses are still the most respected, in fact, by far the most respected entities in people's lives. Some research by Edelman just a month or so ago found that fewer than a third of Americans trust the federal government, although that may be going up right now, and fewer than a third of Americans trust the media. So, that's just kind of like who's left. We're really the employers. So our role as a head of employee experience is to create this trusted experience and to not only work on tools and technologies and HR programs, but to incent and teach business leaders that their job is to take care of people too. Now, we wrote a piece of research that's very, very successful, and a lot of people have really learned a lot from it, called Human-Centered Leadership. We just put a course in the Academy about this. And this is essentially teaching managers that for every business problem, there is a people issue behind it. And if you don't focus on the people side, you're probably not going to do well on the business side. So I've drawn here in some of the research in the report on how you can take every initiative in the company and focus on the human side of it. Give you a good example of this that I love this story is Ford Motor Company, recently split the company into two businesses, the gasoline powered vehicles and then the electric vehicles. The gasoline powered vehicles are a P&L. It's a cash cow in a sense. And the electric vehicles is a growth company. So they're going to be running completely different. The leadership model at Ford is based on caring for people. That is the number one discipline they discuss in leadership at Ford Motor Company. It's not engineering or quality or safety or product leadership. Obviously, those things are there too. But if you take care of the people, they will take care of those things. And that's the fundamental pieces of EX. And underneath that is a lot of psychology. And the psychology that I talk about in Power Skills is this idea that, in the 1800s and the early 1900s, we measured our success by our muscle, how strong we were, how much weight we could carry, how many things we could do at one time, our physical abilities. And then in the information age in the 1970s and 80s and 90s, it was about how smart we were as our brain. So how quickly could we process information? How well could we analyze things? How well could we pick up on signals? Now it's about our heart. Can we hear and listen and feel and relate and communicate to people well? And I think the pandemic, unlocked this key that has always been there, but it was lost in the shuffle of all the other business initiatives of building a workforce or a workplace where people feel happy because they're appreciated, they're respected, they're given flexibility. There's a sense of curiosity and awe and growth and inspiration in the workplace. And those are all part of EX2, not just buying new software. Another piece of this, of course, is diversity, a very critical ongoing issue, especially now in the recruiting world where it's so hard to find people. You have to recruit more diverse candidates. You just have no choice. You can't cookie cutter every job and look for the perfect person based on a template. You have to be open-minded. And a lot of this is a growth of what I call individuality, celebrating the uniqueness of each person in your company, in your workplace, in your team, and letting them be themselves and appreciating them for that difference and respecting and appreciating differences. This is a big deal. It's not an easy topic to discuss, but I think this is where EX has to be going. Now, if you look at the EX domain, I'll talk about the research for a couple minutes. It's crowded. There's a lot of tools. There's a lot of technologies. There's a lot of providers. In fact, every HR vendor has now decided they're in this space. And in a sense, they are, because everything that prevents an employee from doing their job is really a drag on the employee experience. And companies have too many things. I used to, I kind of joke around that a lot of HR technology departments are like kitchen drawers. They just get filled up with stuff and you don't realize how that stuff all got in there, and not all of it's really being used. So you got to clean it out every now and then and fix it up. And the impact, of course, is not just the tools, but also the cognitive load on workers too. People are working more hours, they're under more stress, and they're really having more mental health issues than ever before at work. In fact, mental health has become a commonly discussed topic in business. It's okay to bring it up. Leaders are being trained on OCD and stress and overwork and burnout, so they understand how to spot it, so they understand how to diagnose it, and they can help employees with it. This is all part of the new EX domain, but I think it does go back to psychology. And while we can talk about tech and all sorts of tools, ultimately, I think Maslow's hierarchy still is the key, is if we can make people safe and feel that they are protected at work, they will aspire to do much, much more. But if they don't feel safe, or they don't feel protected, or they feel threatened for whatever reason it could be, they're going to be operating at the bottom of this pyramid and they're going to be underperforming. Now, when we did the research, we went through a lot of practices. We asked companies to diagnose and give us their experiences on more than 80 things. And we grouped them into these 6 categories, which are part of the Irresistible organization research. And what we found is that not all of these things have the same amount of impact. They're all important. And, you could argue that every one of these things on this slide are good things to do. But the things that matter the most in the darker colors really have to do with trust, belonging, a sense of appreciation, knowing what the company stands for, believing in management, liking and knowing how to work with the team you're in, and having a sense of growth in each individual's career. I've never met a person in my life, regardless of their level or their level of experience, that didn't want to go somewhere with their life. Not everybody wants to work 90 hours a week and travel and maybe, work themselves that hard, but everybody wants to be moving forward. And so these things are really existential. If you notice, benefits and tools actually play a lower role than you think. So yes, we want to simplify the work experience and we want to make people more productive. And that really does go a long way. But ultimately, the upper levels of Maslow's hierarchy have to do with this sense of trust. And they correlate directly to your brand, your employment brand. In fact, if you look at Glassdoor ratings, the level of rating of a company by Glassdoor, which is employees rating the company on your behalf, is directly related to culture, values, leadership, and growth. It isn't related to work-life balance. It isn't really related to compensation, really at all. So you may think you're improving your employee experience by giving everybody a raise, but you'd be surprised. It doesn't make nearly as much money as difference as you think. It's a hygiene factor. So if it's too low, people will leave. But if it's, if it's higher, you're better spending that money on the systems and the culture of the company than simply on bonuses or benefits. We also know that we have a very, very diverse workforce, and that there is a new economy of well-being that's being added to this, and we don't know where all those things are going to fit. So we have to really study and understand the different workforce needs inside of a given company. One of the things that's the most interesting to me about EX is we're moving down the same path that we've gone through on customer experience. We don't do one thing for every customer. We have all sorts of segmentation strategies for pinpointing customer segments and offering different products and services to different people depending on their needs. We have to do the same thing for employees. That means we need to listen to employees. We need to get good feedback. We need to get suggestions from employees. And then we in HR have to be designers. It used to be in HR, when I used to go out and talk to companies, they would say, how do we copy what GE did? How do we copy what Google did? Well, really, this is now a design exercise for you, where you really want to instrument your workforce in a way that you hear what they're talking about, and then you use that information to design and iterate and improve the work experience on a continuous basis. And that's what EX is all about. EX isn't a once and done project. It's a new domain of expertise in HR that you will use on an ongoing basis to continuously improve all sorts of things in the workplace and in the management strategies to make work better and easier and more productive for people. And one of the other things I want to just touch on in terms of the psychology of this is this idea of psychological safety. If you buy what I said about jobs becoming service-oriented jobs, virtually everybody in your company is looking for an opportunity to contribute in new ways. And they want to be able to speak up and talk about what's not working. If you don't listen to their complaints or listen to their suggestions, they're not going to feel safe and they're not going to speak up. This research actually comes from the healthcare industry, which may be, the most demanding industry of all. And what the research found was that nurses and operating room teams that had the best patient outcomes were actually the ones that talked about the most problems. They had a high sense of safety where they could discuss mistakes and bring them to light and work on them together in a safe experience. And that's a big part of running a company today, is being humble about what isn't working, discussing these issues, and allowing people to speak up, which is part of the strategy. Now, when we looked at all of this data, and you can read all about it in that study, we found that there's really a sort of a break in the process as companies get sophisticated. The first level of EX is, let's just simplify the work experience and buy a bunch of software and make it easier to use. And then that gets you so far. It certainly helps, but it doesn't really create an inspirational experience at work. So we move to managers and we deal with communications and management behavior and mission and so forth. And that takes you to level 2, and that's about a quarter of the companies. And then at the next level are organizations, many of which are founder-led, where they really focused on the purpose. Why are we here? What are we trying to do? One of the companies that I thought was really interesting during the early days of the pandemic was Sainsbury's in the UK, a big grocery chain. And, everybody was sent home and nobody knew how you got sick. And, it was totally disrupted for them. And they said, you know what, our mission is to feed the United Kingdom. So we're going to tell our employees about how they can contribute to the health and growth and financial success of every family in the UK. And they really reinvented their model of hiring and development and inspiration through this new sense of purpose. IKEA does this. A lot of companies do this, and that takes you a long way. And that's level 3. And then at level 4, EX goes even further. It's also about growing individuals, giving people opportunities, having an opportunity marketplace or a talent marketplace, moving people around as needed, giving people time off, being more flexible on leave. And that's about 20% of the companies. And what we found is that as you move up this maturity model, your company grows in different ways. At the bottom, you become more productive. Then when you add more purpose to the company, you become better engaged and you have higher retention and better employment brand. And then as you give people opportunities to grow and develop themselves, you become more innovative and you become more of a market leader. So you'll find companies at all different levels of this maturity, depending on where you are in your own economic cycle and business cycle. But this is a very big strategic investment. EX is a lot more than an HR program. It's really a corporate strategy for building what I would say is what I call an irresistible company. And the results of this are very high. When we looked at these 1,000 companies or more that went through this study, the ones at the level 3 and level 4 are significantly higher performing financially. They are better performing from a human capital standpoint in the blue, and they're more likely to be innovative product leaders or market leaders in their segments. So there's no question in my mind that this is an investment well worth taking. The final thing I want to talk about is this idea of trust. I showed you the data about trust earlier, and you are responsible in many ways for trust. Trust is really driven by three things. The first is competence, doing the job well, taking care of people effectively. And, we have to do that in HR, and we have to be, in a sense, stewards of the right solutions for employees. The second is fairness. All the decisions we make in human resources, who we promote, who gets hired, how much people make, who gets a new assignment, have to be done in a fair and equitable way with respect to diversity, to age, to gender, and all of the other factors that contribute to people's identity at work. And the third is listening. People trust organizations that care and pay attention to their needs. And so this issue of building a listening culture and building psychological safety is part of building trust, and trust is the largest factor in employee engagement. Okay, that was a very quick presentation. I want to thank you, the folks, for inviting me to speak to you today. And please reach out to me or us if you'd like any more information. All of this research is available in our corporate membership program. And of course, we're always willing to talk to you about specific situations in your company and how it can help you. Thank you very much, and have a fantastic conference.
Thank you so much, Josh, for those incredible insights into employee experience and what it means in this new world of work, on how organizations can create and move to higher levels of employee experience. EX is not just an employee strategy anymore. Companies with great employee experience simply outperform in every way. When you take care of your employees, they take care of your company. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. We have some engaging sessions planned for you all through the day. So stay with us, experience the sessions, interact with fellow leaders, participate in the activities, and enhance your learning experience. Coming up next is our CEO panel on building sustainable and purpose-driven organizations. See you all there. Take care and bye-bye.